Number 10. Lord Logan. With What If crushing it on Disney Plus currently, we have to take a look at this insane version of Logan from What If Volume 2, Issue 24. What if Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires? I'm still Team Edward, I don't care. The main difference is of course that Wolverine has a lust for blood this time around. Other than that, his characteristics don't change too much. His healing factor prevents him from turning, so he takes it upon himself to sink his own teeth into Dracula. Guy's a badass, go over Big D himself. One of the craziest parts here is when Wolverine quickly turns into a werewolf, he tells Dracula he's a quick learner, and now we have a new Dracula, Lord Logan. With Dracula's blood in him now, he loses any sense of humanity, and he's even more aggressive after than Dracula was. He turns over the New Mutants, he turns over the Hellfire Club, the Freedom Force, the Morlocks, everybody is getting bit. Doctor Strange was able to cast a spell to keep the undead out of his sanctum, but Vampire Juggernaut figured out a way and subsequently broke his body in one punch before becoming a snack himself. It's a pretty epic time. It's like a bat versus a wolf for a bit. It's great, go check it out. Number 9. Rancor. Making her first appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy issue 8 back in the early 90s, Rancor was born in the alternate reality of Earth 691 in the 30th century future of the Guardians. She was a 5th generation descendant of Wolverine, and she wasn't very heroic to say the least. She rules over a colony, and apparently every descendant of the Wolverine family line followed the same dark path. On her 16th birthday, Rancor clawed her father's beating heart out of his chest, and then of course she became the next ruler, and her first plan of attack was to enslave the entire human population. Happy birthday! Do you want a car? No, I want all the humans in the world. Thank you, give me. After the Guardians defeated her and destroyed her planet, she stole one of Wolverine's claws from the Shi'ar Museum and headed out for Earth. Now she alongside her lieutenants were captured and recruited by Dr. Doom, so Rancor helped Doom locate the Inhumans on the moon. She turned against Doom and was eventually rescued by the Guardians, but Doom had this pretty sweet weapon with him the whole time. But before we explain that weapon, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, those likes really do wonders for our channel. You're amazing, thank you so much for your support. Now let's get right back to the list. Number 8. Roboclaw. James Gunn has brought the Guardians to life in such a unique and fun way, but back in those early issues, we meet a pretty terrifying version of Logan. Dr. Doom revealed that he had Wolverine's adamantium skeleton and he had killed Logan at some point in the past, and then Doom transferred his own brain into the adamantium skeleton. So now he's like kind of like a robot version. It was pretty sweet. To see Rancor fight this Terminator version of her own family is pretty mind-bending. It's very entertaining. Rancor is using that same Wolverine claw that she found at the museum as a weapon, enforcing the fact that possessing a weapon means nothing without the ability to use it. She then stabs the Doom skeleton right in the eye, and that does the trick, followed by a little shock therapy.
Coming in number 7, we've got Revenger Thor. Revenger, not Avenger. And we're not talking about the Revengers from Thor Ragnarok. We'll talk about MCU stuff some other time. For now, we're diving straight into the Cancerverse, where Lovecraftian abominations rule and death has been done away with entirely. That is a weird, tough pill to swallow. Somehow, Lord Marvel has corrupted the Avengers here and made it so that they serve the many angled ones. These creatures resemble the great old ones of Lovecraftian lore and really lean into that cosmic horror angle. Very spooky, very creepy, very mind-boggling. Thor specifically gets a wild makeover, now sporting some weird tentacle protrusions out of his face and glowing red eyes to boot. Definitely not a hero that would bring relief to the face of a scared public. Coming at number 6, we've got Beta Ray Bill. This one is pretty much accidental in how it happened. A super soldier from a race known as Corbinites, Beta Ray Bill was already pretty powerful before being granted the power of Thor. When the Corbinites galaxy was destroyed, Bill was the one designated to protect their planet, and he did so quite well. A very heroic hero, of course. So when he fought Thor over the use of Mjolnir, it turned out that he was indeed worthy of that power. In doing so, he was granted the power of Thor through a weapon called Stormbreaker. Good for you, Bill. Thor. Whatever. Coming in at number 5, we've got Cyclops Thor. Mjolnir only has one eye, and now Thor does too. Sorry for that terrible joke, I just couldn't help it. Somewhere out there is a universe absolutely stuffed with Cyclops, beings only sporting one eye. Dead center on their heads, the look is an uncanny one indeed. In that very same world, all of the regular heroes we've come to know and love are around, although they're all sporting that singular optical nerve. Thor is included in this mess, and they eventually make it through some dimensional cracks to cause trouble in other realities. Powerful and weird to look at, this version of Thor is a doozy. Very strange indeed. Coming in number 4, we've got Venom Thor. The symbiote never gives up. No way, no how. In a universe where it does not attach itself to Eddie Brock, it does its best to find another suitable host. In the case of Venom Thor, it first found Spider-Man. Featured in a What If comic, this time the symbiote hijacks Peter Parker. This causes all sorts of chaos, eventually resulting in it hopping to the Hulk. And then the Jolly Green Giant eventually delivers it to Thor. This is particularly rough because this version of the alien creature doesn't recoil at the introduction of sonic energy, it just feeds off the energy of the heroes it attaches to. So for a while, Venom is born with the body and powers of an Asgardian. Yikes. Eventually, Thor is able to shake it off and defeat it, but that doesn't make up for the very strange image of a venom-colored god of thunder though. Coming in at number 3, we've got Throg. It's Thor, but he's a frog. Just look at him. Man, what a world we live in where stuff like this is just readily accessible at all times. The god of thunder in adorable amphibian form. This version of Thor pops up a couple times, once being held captive in a jar and once in a run where all the Avengers were animals. The jar frog found in The Void was hinted at being a result of one of Loki's pranks on Thor. Very funny, brother, now turn me back into an Asgardian. The other Throg is a wild tale of Simon Walterson accidentally getting turned into a frog, joining an animal war, coming across a piece of Mjolnir, and transforming into Thor. Throg! It's Thor, but a frog. Coming in at number 2, we've got Thur. Even less sensical to say and even more goofy, this is an outlandishly cartoonish iteration of the God of Thunder. His story stays the same, his powers remain unchanged, but now Thor is a cartoon bulldog. He's part of the Scavengers, and was born in Arfgard. Oh me, oh my. It's definitely mostly a gag character, originally appearing in an issue of the Spectacular Spider-Ham alongside Peter Porker, but Thur has been around and continues to show up. And at number 1, we've got Thorangutan. Honestly, I just wanted to say this one out loud. Like, Throg and Thur are all fun and all, but the pun action on Thorangutan is unmatched. Say it out loud while looking at this goofy little monkey and tell me you don't crack a smile. Thorangutan is a hero on an Earth ruled by intelligent apes. Ape Avengers, Ape Assemble. And with that, I'll stop.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Darkclaw. Coming from the Amalgam universe, where DC and Marvel combine powers figuratively and literally, we get a Wolverine-Batman double whammy. First appearing in Legends of the Darkclaw issue 1 back in 1996. At just age 5, young Logan Wayne witnessed the death of his parents, so now we have that Batman origin right off the bat to lay the foundation. Good stuff, always promising. And then Logan Wayne was sent to live with his uncle in Canada. But after poachers ambushed his home, we have even more family members biting the bullet. So far, so sad. Okay, so Logan Wayne enlisted then in the Royal Canadian Air Force and soon after the Weapon X program. This is all starting to sound a bit familiar, I bet. That's when the Wolverine origin comes in. Logan Wayne got the adamantium treatment, but it was a failure. In a way, kind of. Because Logan wasn't this mindless brute like he was in the comics. See, now he kept his sanity. So now we're starting to get more of a positive vibe, which is good for a good start of this list. Afterwards, he was a free man, so he studied criminology, forensics, gymnastics, martial arts, anything he could get his hands on, including the 127 major styles of combat. That mixed with the claws, Logan Wayne is somebody I'd never want to cross paths with, either as Batman or just Wolverine. Either way, I'm like, no, you guys are both gonna kill me. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, support our man Wolverine, he is Canadian, we are Canadian, only makes sense, really hit those thumbs up, you guys are the best. Let's get back to the list. Number 9, Wild Thing. For this one, we go over to the MC2 universe where Elektra married Wolverine and soon after came a child, of course. That daughter was named Rena Logan, and if that name doesn't ring a bell, she's also called Wild Thing. Marvel's MC2 imprint quickly gained momentum after What If, issue 105, which introduced us to a universe full of other super kids. Wild Thing's powers are very similar to her father's, obviously. I mean, even just by looking at her, you could probably make a guess who she's an offspring of. All that aggression, you're like, okay, it's definitely Wolverine. She also possesses the power of regenerative healing and super strength, but what makes her stand out really is the psychic claws. Instead of adamantium claws, she has minor psionic abilities that allow her to manifest her own claws, but if she focuses hard enough, if she really thinks, she can have claws, real life claws like her father, and dish out physical damage too. Mental, physical, she's got you beat in both realms. Number 8, Hydra Wolverine. Hearing Cap say Hail Hydra in Endgame was a wild moment to witness in theaters. Steve using future knowledge to save the day instead of kicking everybody's ass in the elevator, whilst tipping his hat to comic book fans, it was a nice moment, beautifully written in. In Exiles issue 92, we get to see Logan turn sides briefly as well. In this reality, Wolverine is a Hydra agent and the Invisible Woman is Madam Hydra, and to make things even more strange, they're both lovers. Yeah, this odd couple here alongside Slaymaster left their reality after fighting the Exiles, and they tried to conquer the multiverse. Hydra Wolvie wasn't around too long, for he was actually brutally taken out by the Cat with his own claws in New Exiles issue 12. Number 7. Earth X. James Howlett from Earth 9997, and here he's actually not a mutant, he's pure human. We learned that Wolverine's ancestors were actually a group of early humans known as the Moon Clan. What happened was when the first celestial host arrived, it blocked out the moon, and the moon, to the Moon Clan, I mean, they worshipped the thing, so when it disappeared, so did they. They ducked out in a cave, they weren't sure what was going on, but they wanted no part of it. They were one of the few links of humanity that weren't manipulated by the Celestials, so Logan's natural DNA was now able to evolve, growing into his abilities like enhanced senses, bone claws, healing factors, all the good stuff. So when Charles recruited him into the X-Men, he might have been aware that Logan isn't truly a mutant. So next time there's a lunar eclipse, I'm gonna go hide in a cave somewhere up north, just to see what happens. Number 6. Days of Future Past. In the Age of Ultron comic, we see again a dark future where the Avengers are getting whooped. Ultron is using Vision as a conduit from the future, like the world's most painful game of telephone, and the Avengers don't really see a way to get Ultron to stop, so they send Sue Storm and Logan back in time to find a solution. Now, Logan's solution was to just straight up kill Hank Pym to make sure Ultron isn't created. But in doing so, this opened a dark alternate future, so when they go back to this new timeline they've created, the Kree-Skrull War is now moved to Earth, and they run into the Defenders of that timeline, and also Logan of that timeline. That's a lot of Logans in one story, but is there ever enough? Really? No, never. Number 5. The Hooded Man. Making his first appearance in Fantastic Four issue 558, the Hooded Man is James Howlett from the year 2509. Now at this point, he had given up the whole Wolverine alias, and now he was calling himself the Hooded Man. Reminds me of Hawkeye when he turned into Ronin in like Endgame. We love hooded people, especially Robin Hood, he's OG. Now in this future, he alongside the Fantastic Four have formed the New Defenders. The New Defenders use the body of a deceased Galactus to travel back in time. They transported their dead world to Earth 616, now their new world. Well, it's literally called that, New World, NU World. It's an exact replica of Earth. Ted Castle and others created this knowing that our current Earth would be uninhabitable in just a mere 30 years. So the New Defenders settled here with present day Fantastic Four, but eventually Logan, aka the Hooded Man, went back to his own reality to rebuild the population with Gaia. It's gonna be really busy. That's gonna be a busy time. Number 4. Helverine. First appearing in Wolverine Volume 4, Helverine was a fierce demon from the underworld, as if his name didn't maybe tip you off already. He first approached a man named Roger who hated Wolverine so much because he actually blamed the death of his wife on Wolverine. The demon then told Roger that if he joined the Red Right Hand, he would help him get revenge. So, sounds great, Mr. Demon, thank you so much. And then he disappeared. So he joined the organization, and he alongside other Right Hand members sacrificed a man and a woman in order to get the demon to come back again. The demon returned, took out those two people, and then in turn told Roger it was revenge time. All the while, Wolverine was tricked inside of a van where the founder, leader of the Red Right Hand, performed a ritual to have Helverine take over Wolverine's body. Helverine was then forced to attack all of his close friends, and as dark as this one is, I gotta say, it's one of my favorite versions of Wolverine. Maybe it's the Flaming Claws, maybe it's Maybelline. I don't know. I love him. Number 3. The End. In Wolverine The End, we see an aged Wolverine as he embarks to take down the last of the Weapon X program, all the while he's dealing with himself becoming less immortal. This 6-parter is a great gloomy time. It opens with Wolverine in the snowy landscapes of Canada, struggling to even hunt a deer. Now it hurts him to retract his claws, super arthritis ain't a joke, and now he has long white hair, and I gotta admit, watching him struggle is depressing but really entertaining. Because in this run he meets his long lost brother who has apparently been watching him for a long time, and his brother tries to make it seem like he's going to help him discover the secrets of his past, but really he's just using him to nuke Vegas. So in the end, literally the end of the end, Wolverine is holding his long lost brother's body. It's quite sad, but definitely worth a read. Bring tissues, you'll need them. Number 2. James Hudson Jr. Jimmy Hudson, okay, first appeared back in the 2010s Ultimate X issue 1, but later on in Ultimate Comics Wolverine issue 4, he was the new Wolverine. Okay, who is this guy? So Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine. So back when Logan was fighting in Iraq, he fought alongside a man named James Hudson, and they were pretty close because Logan trusted James enough to take care of his newborn son. Jimmy's last name was changed when the adoption became official, and Jimmy Jr. had no idea that he too was a mutant until his high school days. He took after his birth father even so. I mean, he was attracted to redheads, he was reckless, and of course, he was absolutely shredded. In Venomized, the Poison Hive invades Earth, and they force symbiotes to bond with various superhumans. When the X-Men helped out, Jimmy was bonded to one himself. And finally, number 1. Weapon H. Making his first appearance in Totally Awesome Hulk issue 21, Clayton Cortez was originally a Marine and former Eagle Star contractor whose team was originally hired to go after the villagers of Uzhanka for sabotaging a Roxxon pipeline. Clay turned against his own men, saving lives, but he also put himself in a dark spot. He was captured and sold to Dr. Alba, head of Weapon X Batch H Division, which was this neat division that made Wolverine-Hulk hybrids. Gotta love those. H-Alpha was unlike the others because he wasn't recruited by Director Stryker, so he wasn't a true believer in his cause, and that Dr. Alba left more of his brain in there than the other subjects in hopes that he would train better. Okay, leave a little bit of brain left, see what happens. H-Alpha had about 15 minutes to go in the incubation process when a group of mutants showed up and raided the place. So Dr. Alba released H-Beta to buy time, but when H-Alpha was finally done, he beheaded H-Beta. And then the Hulk came in, which at the time was Amadeus Cho, and he came in to hold him back. It was just nuts. People are getting their heads cut off, there's Hulk hybrids everywhere. It's really loud, it must be a really loud day. Once the Weapon X staff left, Weapon H stopped fighting and then he jumped far away.
Starting off our list with an honorable mention at number 10, we have Captain Carter. Normally, I'd put my girl Peggy higher up on any list, but since she's less weird and more awesome, we've gotta put her here. Captain Carter actually originally debuted in the Marvel Puzzle Quest video game during a celebration for Captain America's 75th anniversary, but was given a fully fleshed out backstory and has been a fan favorite ever since. In a universe where Steve Rogers is assassinated before he can be given the super soldier serum, Peggy Carter is instead the one who becomes an incredibly strong and iconic hero for the Allied forces. The comics would continue her adventures, with her universe's New York City coming under attack with nuclear weapons by the Red Skull, and eventually lead to her joining the superhero team the Exiles after their multiverse-spanning adventures brought them into contact. Next up on our list is the center point for one of the most controversial Marvel storylines of all time, the infamous Hydra Cap. Initially appearing to be the main Marvel Universe's Captain America, this version of Steve Rogers had grown up indoctrinated by Hydra's fascist ideologies and was actually sent to America to kill the creator of the superhuman serum for the Axis powers, but instead wound up deceiving his way into receiving the serum himself. Having wound up in the main Marvel Universe when their Steve Rogers was rejuvenated back to his usual age in a different storyline, this Hydra Cap was able to hide his evil intentions until the pivotal moment that he declared to the world those shocking words, "Hail Hydra." Seeing one of comics' most inspiring icons twisted in such a way was definitely unexpected, and definitely earns a surprising spot on this list. Coming in at number 8, we have the blood-sucking Vampire Cap. In a universe where Captain America fought and then lost against the villain Baron Blood, soon the entire Avengers team was overtaken by his vampiric disease. Consumed with a lust for both blood and power, this Steve Rogers began a year-long killing spree that culminated in killing Baron Blood and taking his place as the new Vampire King. This version had all of the benefits of the Super Soldier Serum, in addition to new vampire abilities such as healing so advanced, he was able to survive getting decapitated when facing off against several other Marvel heroes. I guess going for the head isn't as effective as we all thought.
Number 7. Captain Logan. Coming from the Noir series, Earth 90214, Jim Logan was a detective. Much like our 616 Logan, his past was also troubled. His partner was his half-brother named Dog Logan, who has the brains of a bedbug and the manners of a gutter rat. And that's in his words, not mine. His origins are a little bit messy when it comes to the Noir verse, because in X-Men Noir, Mark of Cain, Wolverine's origins are that of a bootlegger whose past is never really touched on. All we know is that he's a former lover of Jean Grey, and that he was the one who took out Scott Summers' left eye. But here in Wolverine Noir, he's a detective with a gritty Catholic past. Either way, the Noir versions of Wolverine is quite dark, and although his claws aren't built in this time around, he still has them as a weapon of choice. Real Freddy Krueger style, I like it. Number 6. Weapon X. One of the more extreme versions of Wolverine, Weapon X came from the Age of Apocalypse storyline, and the first time we meet him is in X-Men Alpha issue 1. Weapon X was a member of the X-Men, only this time around Magneto is running the team. How lovely is that? He's great. One of the most notable differences between this Logan and others is that Weapon X is missing a hand. He had battled Cyclops, and although he lost it in the fight, Logan can still use claws on that arm. Now in this reality, Weapon X was married to Jean Grey, so a little light in this warped reality. Love still exists out there, it's true. He later on became Weapon Omega, aka the heir to Apocalypse, so it's really not that great. There's love, but there's also evil stuff. Number 5. Zombie Wolverine. We're just a day out from another episode of What If on Disney Plus, and we're all so excited, and I'll be honest, a little bit nervous because those zombie Avengers are still super powered and they're still on the way. Zombie Wolverine first appeared in Ultimate Fantastic Four issue 22. Now at the Xavier Institute, Wolverine and the X-Men were taking on a zombified Alpha Flight when Magneto came in to save the day. He was part of the crew that went to fight off the remaining horde, but I did introduce him as Zombie Wolverine, so yes, he was sadly infected. Wolverine was bitten by Zombie Hawkeye and Zombie Cap, and after he turned into one himself, he defeated and then ate the Silver Surfer. An afternoon snack quickly gave Wolverine cosmic powers, quite the upgrade. It's a gory good time. If we had X-Men in the MCU right now, the zombie episodes would have been so much better, but we can't complain, it's still good stuff. Wolverine is a main character in the Marvel Zombies Dead Days and a minor antagonist in Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness. If you haven't read either, I recommend you read both of them. Read all the zombie comics. I shouldn't have to sell you on how cool zombie superhero comics are. You know? Number 4, Mr. Murderhands. There's a nickname, a rather fitting one, really. Logan from Earth 65 first appeared in Spider-Gwen Volume 2, Issue 20. He was a former Japanese samurai who was cursed by a witch. The curse was that you have to live on Earth for all the days that his targets, the people that he killed, would have. So he's gonna see quite a few days, basically. His memory here is also erased, and it happens right after he joins the Weapon X program, where he's also given his trademark adamantium claws. When he later joins S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Black Ops team, his fellow operatives give him the nickname of Mr. Murderhands. Nice. Oh, this is your teammate, Edward Murderhands. Yeah, make sure you sign in. Great, break a leg, team. Number 3, Primal Wolverine. A side we don't get to see too often is Logan's animalistic side. Although maybe it's for the best, we don't want to see that. We don't want any of that smoke, really. Coming from the Mutant X series back in 1998, we pick up with Wolverine, Sabretooth, and Wildchild, but this time around they're referred to as the Pack. Now in this story, Logan still goes crazy after Weapon X does their thing, but this time he's not alone. Sabretooth and Wildchild also endure these crazy experiments, each of them also going primal in the end. Now the three of them end up roaming the Canadian wilderness like an actual pack. But this pack is one you want to avoid. They end up going nuts by the end of the comic, like I said, but while they're in the wild, they did see other mutants, and in turn they all worked together for a hot moment to figure out what was happening in Weapon X. They have the right idea, but those animalistic impulses are just too powerful. Messy. Number 2, Old Man Logan. Mark Millar's Old Man Logan begins in Volume 3 of Wolverine on issue 66, and this is a future where supervillains have sadly won for the most part. Hulk and She-Hulk had kids, the Hulklings, who would beat the crap out of you if you didn't pay rent. So yeah, it's an odd future to say the least. Everybody has their own territory, so Logan now has to pay up for living in his. Hawkeye, who was much older and this time around he was blind, needed Logan's assistance to get across the country and deliver a secret package. This was a way Logan could get some of that rent money, so let's do it. Just talking about Logan paying rent money is a weird thing. When they get back from their trip, things have changed drastically. Now Hulk Gang actually took out Logan's family because, you know, they were bored. And that's what people do when they're bored in this dark future. No more games, no more talking. Now it's time for Logan just to get payback. Simple as that. Alternate reality, same temper. Logan gets Banner, he gets him right through the chest, so naturally he hulks out. And then when Hulk eats Logan, you think that would for sure be the end of it, but that's when Logan pops out from inside Banner. Surprise, we're gonna throw up. And finally, number 1. Old Man Venom. Coming from Edge of Venomverse issue 4, we see Logan get captured by Angel, who is Archangel in disguise, and Hulk Jr. This story played out differently than the Old Man Logan storyline because this Wolverine told Bruce Banner Jr. what happened to his father. Archangel took Logan to the danger room of the X-Mansion, and that's where he and Bruce Jr. just ambushed him. Wasn't very happy this time around, although the first one wasn't really happy in any way, I guess, either. Bruce Jr. had this idea that maybe if he kills Logan, he can then use his DNA and create symbiote hybrid clones, but what ended up happening was Logan fought a Venomsaurus Rex, that same T-Rex from the original Old Man Logan storyline. The same one we see chasing Hawkeye and Logan. So he fought it, got eaten by it, and then considering the fact that Logan was eaten by the Hulk and ripped his way out, we already know that this is going to be much better. He comes out better than ever. The symbiote ends up bonding with Logan in the T-Rex tummy, giving us a pretty exciting extreme upgrade. He rips his way through the dinosaur and subsequently rips his way through his enemies. Kicking off the list at number 10, Anthony the Vampire. Making his first appearance in Ultimate Avengers issue 14, Anthony was the greatest vampire hunter who ever walked this earth. He trained Daredevil, Blade, and Edward Cullen. Okay, the last one I lied about, but still, you get it. When he meets up with Blade later on, he has a new look. He was eventually bitten by a vampire, so he became their leader as well. The coolest part about Anthony is that he uses a Mark I Iron Man suit to get around during the day, so the sun doesn't, you know, evaporate him or whatever. He captured and turned Smart Hulk into a bloodsucker, but his armor was stolen and used by Stick to fight back. Another Tony, another suit. Imagine you're in trouble and this guy rolls up on you. What a surprise that would be. Issue 16 of Ultimate Avengers opens with a great Twilight parody, but this is also the last time we see this Iron Man take flight. And that's because Hulk punched his head off, and usually when he does that, you don't come back, vampire or not. Number 9. Iron Lantern. From the Amalgam comic universe, Iron Lantern is of course a millionaire who is in charge of Stark Aircraft. While he's working on a flight simulator, it straight up took off and flew him somewhere else. Best simulator ever, if I do say so myself. Then he crash landed on the ground, injuring Stark, and he realized he was brought to a crashed alien spaceship. That spaceship belonged to none other than Roman Sur, who died before getting a chance to talk to Hal Stark. Not being in the best condition, obviously, after the rocky landing, Hal started working with his newfound tech on a new suit, hopefully to save his life. The Green Lantern upgrade of his suit saved his life for sure, but it also gave him the power to create anything out of green energy. He used a battery that reminded him of a lantern to do so. And then he went on to fight the aliens that had shot down Roman Sur and continued fighting enemies such as Madame Sapphire and Mandarin Esto, who, yes, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. Before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. It really helps us out here quite a bit. You're the best. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get right back into this list of weird Iron Mans. Number 8. Lord Iron. Coming from Marvel 1602, Lord Iron was amongst the other heroes who rose to fame, but a little bit back in time. See, Captain America was literally shot back in time, so the Age of Heroes has to begin there. And in turn, we get some fun versions of our Avengers. Anthony Stark was taken and held captive in the Holy Land during the English and Spanish War, a little different than the cave that he ended up with in our time. He was forced to make weapons still for them for weeks, mirroring Tony's origin in a fun, older way. David Banner was torturing him this time around though, so Anthony makes his own suit powered by lightning bottles. Okay. Now it doesn't matter which timeline Tony ends up in, he's destined to be Iron Man one way or another.
At number 7, we have Ultimate Captain America, a character that probably wasn't intended to be read as weird when first created, but has since turned out to be a bit more of a unique interpretation of the character. Notably more destructive, assertive, and just a bit grumpier than most other interpretations of Steve Rogers, he could be seen as a different interpretation of American patriotism than more classical versions of the character take from. In another wild and tragic twist, this Cap's version of Red Skull is actually his literal son, the result of his last night with his World War II era girlfriend, Gail Richards. Completely unknown about by Steve and born after he was frozen in ice, the baby was taken by the military and grew up in foster care. Growing up with an inferiority complex, this child would eventually scar himself and become the criminal mastermind, the Red Skull. Talk about a messed up family, Steve. Coming in at number 6, it's Steve Rogers. No wait, it's Stephen Strange. No wait again, it's actually Steven Rogers, Soldier Supreme. In a pocket dimension known as Warp World, where every soul of the Marvel Universe has been merged with that of another, Doctor Strange and Captain America were DNA digivolved into the combined form of the Soldier Supreme. In this unique part of the multiverse, the superhuman experiments done by the Allies during World War II were achieved through magic instead of science, with the weak and scrawny Steven Rogers being taught the ways of dark magic and learning powerful sorcery. With a best friend known as Bucky Wong, a literal Winter Soldier after he becomes a ghost, this combo of characters is definitely a standout in a multiverse full of standouts. At number 5, we've got the alternate future showstopper of Danielle Cage, the Captain America of the future. The grown-up child of both Jessica Jones and Luke Cage on Earth 15061, Danielle has taken up the mantle of Captain America in a Manhattan where climate change makes flooding incredibly frequent and gangs roam the streets. With her own arch nemesis in the form of the Golden Skull, Danielle Cage is also one of the physically strongest Captain Americas throughout the multiverse, inheriting both the strength-based power sets of her parents and letting her yeet that red and blue shield as hard as it's ever been thrown before. Coming in at number 4, we've got a bit of a change of rank with Colonel America, aka Zombie Cap. In a world where an infected sentry brings a zombie plague from beyond the stars, and also where Steve Rogers has achieved the rank of Colonel and the presidency of the United States, America's hero is bidden along with many of the Avengers when they try to contain the sentry situation. The Colonel is even the one to eventually bite Spider-Man on the shoulder when the younger hero tries to help. This zombified version of Steve Rogers retains all of his powers and more, surviving with half of his brain exposed opposed until he was finally defeated by his enemy the Red Skull during a final battle over who gets to devour the corpse of Galactus. Definitely some very, very weird stuff. At number 3, we've got another character with a Dragon Ball Z style fusion in the form of Clark Kent, the Super Soldier. And no, this didn't suddenly switch over to a DC Comics themed video. In the Amalgam universe, where the Marvel and DC multiverses have been compressed and combined into one unified world by the megaversal beings known as the Brothers, Super Soldier is the result of mixing the backstories of both Captain America and Superman. Clark Kent is a young man from Kansas who winds up receiving his powers of strength, heat vision, and flight not from being a Kryptonian, but by volunteering for the Super Soldier program to help America during the Second World War, a process which is spied on by a very mischievous Jimmy Olsen. He would go on to fight the leader of Hydra, a version of Lex Luthor, and Super Metallo, a combination of Metallo and Red Skull's usual brand of killer robots. Double the trouble, double the fun. Coming in at number 2, we've got a version of Captain America that doesn't even need America. That's right, it's Captain Avalon. Coming from a Marvel universe inspired by classic sword and sorcery fantasy, this version of Cap is merely called Stevan until his son, funnily enough named Stevan Jr., is kidnapped by the Dreadlord, an evil alternate version of Baron Zemo. While he doesn't appear to have any actual magical abilities or equivalents to the Super Soldier formula, Captain Avalon is a brave knight at the peak of human condition, and his red and blue shield still brings the core of this classic character to light, even if America doesn't really exist in this Game of Thrones style world. And finally, coming in at the top spot for our weirdest alternate versions of Captain America, we have a choice that's not even human. That's right, it's Captain Americat. Hailing from Earth 8311, the very same world that's home to the spectacular Spider-Ham, this version of Cap is named Steven Mouser, leads a group of superpowered animals known as the Scavengers, and in another groan-inducing animal pun, most notably led them into battle against the supervillain Moltron. While his appearances have mostly been related to side stories compared to Spider-Ham's main adventures, Captain Americat is definitely the oddest version of Steve Rogers that we've yet to see in the Marvel Multiverse.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Spiders-Man. We'll kick off this list on an itchy note. This version of Spider-Man from Earth 11580 is actually Spiders-Man. You might be asking, wait a minute Taylor, spiders? Like more than one? Oh yeah, he's actually made up of thousands of spiders that work together as if they're one person, like a hive mind. See, before that incident, that horrible incident, Peter and Gwen were visiting Horizon Labs, and instead of one spider taking a bite out of Peter's finger and then blessing him with biceps and perfect vision, he instead fell into a pit of radioactive spiders where they all consumed him, and subsequently his consciousness was spread out through all of those spiders. Hive mind, so gross. How horrible is this already? If I just got robbed and Spiders-Man came to save the day, I'd be sick. Just seeing a cover of this guy on Spider-Geddon issue 3 makes me so uncomfortable. I mean, hats off to Christos Gage and George Molina for making this character one of the most unique versions. You can definitely say that. Definitely unique. The Spider. Coming from Earth 15, the Spider, also known as Inmate 24739, made his first appearance in Exiles issue 12. Inmate, what's going on with that? Is Peter bad in this reality? Yeah, he's actually pretty horrible. He's a redhead who has a lot in common with Cletus Cassidy, and in turn he gets slapped with 67 consecutive life sentences by a jury. He's not as into the saving lives thing, he's rather into the opposite. He joined Weapon X after being drafted by the Timebreakers. Now, as horrible as the Spider sounds, he still feels like Peter when you read this comic. He has a similar sense of humor as Deadpool here, so it's still fun, although he's evil. Hyperion of Earth 4023 also joined, became the leader, and the Spider stood by his side as they planned on conquering multiple realities. Pete met his fate in issue 44 of Exiles when Firestar hit him with a Mega Blast. He turned into ash. Already cremated, look at that, we get to save money. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It really does help our nerd squad over here in our nerd base. You guys are the best. Thanks for sticking around. Let's keep going with this list. Number 8, Spider-Kid. Making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 1, Earth 218 Peter's childhood is actually darker this time around, believe it or not. See, both of his parents passed away in a car crash, and Uncle Ben was a mean old man afterwards who was just horrible to Peter all the time. Peter actually changed his name to Charlie, and then he didn't try and be good. He actually became quite a troubled young man. He had to spend 2 years at the Administration for Child Services and then 2 more years at the Horizon Juvenile Detention Center. In order to get by, he chose to steal money from street dealers. He's not a bad kid, although I've just said that he is a few times. He just had a horrible childhood and he slipped down the wrong path. It happens. But that all changed when Charlie was recruited into the Superior Spider Army by Ashley Barton. She calls him Grandpa because he reminds her of an older Pete from her reality. He's like, yeah, I'm 13 though, please don't call me Gramps. Awesome. Number 7. Iron Man Noir. Coming from the Noir series, Iron Man of Earth 90214 had to go all the way to Atlantis to fix his heart problem. What am I talking about? Let's find out. Tony in this reality was an industrialist adventurer. It feels like National Treasure almost. We meet Tony and the crew and they're looking for something called the Jade Mask. This mask that was said to cure any kind of ailment, so he figured, hey, it's worth a shot to fix the old ticker. It didn't work, so some traitors then revealed themselves once the mask was found, so Tony and Rhodey escaped and returned to New York. He goes on yet another treasure hunt with Rhodey, this time to Atlantis, because he heard a rumor that this power source could also do wonders to his heart, maybe, perhaps. Tony gets the trident, and again, he gets betrayed. Zemo and his forces were strong enough to kidnap Pepper, and Tony and Rhodes need a new plan. They travel to Zemo's castle, and it's then that it's revealed that Zemo is actually Tony's father, brainwashed by Strucker. And he was also equipped with Iron Man suits because action and adventure. As far as Noir storylines go, Iron Man isn't my favorite, but the whole Nathan Drake vibe that Tony has is still quite fun. And also, Atlantis. It's kind of weird. Dive in. Number 6. Earth X. Also known as Earth 9997, this version of Iron Man hit the pages back in Earth X issue 0. This time around, the human race is at risk due to the release of Terrigen mists. So Tony decides, you know what, I'm just going to isolate myself, not being sure how the mist would react, which is a fair point. So in turn, he would wear his armor all the time, then eventually he made an Iron Manor in New York. Super cautious, you know, with today's stuff going on, you can't really blame him. He went even further when he decided it was best to create his own team, the Iron Avengers. Guy was super paranoid. So eventually Galactus did come along, so Tony used his Iron Manor and distracted the Celestials beforehand. Now during this, Tony lost his life. Some wreckage impaled him, and for the first time in a while, Tony was able to breathe open air. How, you ask? Well, he died, and his soul immediately went to the realm of the dead, and that's when Captain Marvel's soul recruited him for an army set to take on death. Which is, first of all, nuts, because even after you die in Marvel Comics, you can't just chill out in heaven. You have to like go fight another war immediately. Like, come on. But Death did eventually die, and that's when Tony got another huge upgrade in Paradise. Using the High Evolutionary's devices, Tony was changed into this angelic being, of course, still with wings. And he looked like Iron Man, so that's fun. You can customize your own angel outfit once you get up there. That's good to know. Number 5. Tony Doom. Since What If is currently dropping weekly episodes on Disney Plus, we have to mention one of the more wild issues. What if Tony Stark had become Dr. Doom? It would probably be pretty bad. Yeah, yes, it is. So here in the storyline, that both of them go to the same college instead of Reed Richards being Victor's roommate. So now it's Tony. 2 geniuses in one dorm. Sounds like they would make dreams come true, but in reality, it was a living nightmare waiting to happen. Doom tricked Tony into switching bodies Freaky Friday style. And on top of that, Tony's memories were also wiped. So Tony, in Doom's body, gets in heat for the experiment, and in turn, he gets sent back to Latveria. Meanwhile, Doom is in line to take over Stark Industries. He still is Tony Stark, so down the road, Doom Industries was now a competitor to Stark Industries. He's brilliant in any way. The pair end up creating their own armors. Of course, Tony builds a red and gold Doom armor, while Doom makes a green and gray Iron Man armor. I'll give you a second to absorb that. There we go. It's a fun little swap with good action, but it's a little bit too confusing of a Freaky Friday type plot. But it's worth a shot. Go give it a try. Number 4. Dead Man Walking. We look now over to Fantastic Four: The End, released in 2007. Most of Tony's story here was the same, but during the Mutant Wars, Tony lost his life. Now, he didn't get redirected to a paradise where he would then become an Iron Man themed angel. Instead, he uploaded his subconsciousness into an AI. So now he lives through his armors, just swapping back and forth, walking around, which sounds like a solution, I guess, but living forever? Come on, Tony, I don't think that's a way to go, really. Number 3. Steel Corpse. Tony and his suit have always been so close. It's had its back many times, sometimes even acting for itself and making a judgment call. Like in Iron Man 3, it literally woke Tony up from a nightmare aggressively. We love that future tech. But in the Age of X storyline, the suit literally has his back, as Tony in the suit begin to merge. Ugh, I'm itchy just reading this. This started right after a virus began taking its toll on Tony. He was rapidly declining health-wise, so he chose a more fitting name, Steel Corpse, to be kind of funny, but also he looks like a corpse, so he's like, I'm just gonna admit it. He, alongside other much healthier Avengers, were tasked to take down mutants, but when the gang got there, they of course opted to save them instead. Superhero twist of logic, we love it. Only Tony's advanced suit wasn't exactly on board with his new plan, and it started to act out by itself. It still wanted to save the day, although this was not the right way to do it. Captain America had no choice but to end the life of Steel Corpse in order to save the mutants. Number 2. Iron Goblin. Making his first appearance in the Spider Island series, Iron Goblin wasn't made through any reality warping or anything like that. Instead, this happens during the Resistance assault on Spider-Queen, which is sounding crazier than what I just said. Tony Stark ends up getting captured and infected with the spider virus. He's going nuts at this point, so the rest of the heroes try and snap him out of it by using Goblin Formula, which is a solution, I guess. I don't know, read a book, read a comic book, Avengers. Something bad's gonna happen. So he went from being a spider monster to Iron Goblin. Pretty crazy 24 hours for Tony. Tony was still Tony after this point though, despite the evil green look on his face. Like he even said Norman stole his armor before, so he was just evening it out. Haha, he's funny, he's still Tony, nice. But as time went by, every minute that passed, that formula started to in fact change Tony. Like for example, he was flying around on the glider, although he can fly with his suit. It's not looking good. He knew he was going insane, so he sacrificed himself when the Queen's army attacked. Still a hero nonetheless, although he's mean and green and throwing pumpkin bombs. And finally, number 1, Iron Hammer. Coming from Warp World, Iron Hammer, aka Stark Odinson, first came to life in issue 3 of Infinity Wars. So when Gamora had the Infinity Stones, she trapped everybody's soul in the Soul Gem, and then folded the universe in half, which resulted in all of our heroes merging together. Pretty fun. So rightfully referred to as Warp World, we soon get to meet Soldier Supreme, Ghost Panther, Weapon Hex, and Iron Hammer. Stark Odinson in this pocket universe is the son, of course, of Howard Odin, chieftain of Asgard. He has the Iron Hammer armor, and of course he has a massive literal hammer of the gods to get the message across. Being a combination of both, he can face powerful villains like Stain Odinson, who is a blend of Loki and Obadiah Stane, and even Madam Hell, one of the coolest looking versions definitely, and also one of the more powerful. A great note to end on.
And at 10, Future Flash. The Future Flash is certainly an odd character, not due to anything about them, be it physically or otherwise, but because of his motives. The Future Flash is a version of Barry Allen from the future who blamed himself for the death of Wally West. In an effort to correct his mistakes and try to prevent this tragedy, he starts killing enemies to gain enough speed to travel back in time. He starts by killing Gorilla Grodd with a microbomb he phases into his head. Then he eventually kills enough people to travel back to kill one final enemy, himself. His goal this whole time was to travel back to before Wally dies and kill his old self, preventing any of this from happening. At least, he thinks. Which honestly is a pretty awful plan if you ask me. Like, I know that it's like, well, alternate timelines or whatever, but if you went back in time and killed yourself, wouldn't you then not be alive in order to go back and kill yourself, thus making it impossible for you to kill a past version of yourself? I mean, you could kill your future self, but not your past one. It just seems odd to me, honestly. Though Future Flash is evidently stopped, he does give Barry a clue about the murder of his mother, saying only one word: Thawne. And at 9, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster version of Batman from the Dark Multiverse, and no, not the Universal one. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but as various Robins kept dying, Batman got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his methods. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his Speed Force powers. So Batman uses the various rogues' weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out. Once Barry was unconscious, Bruce tied him to the front of a cosmic treadmill improved Batmobile and drives them both into the Speed Force. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into a Batman with super speed, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman Who Laughs, who asks him to join Barbados's Dark Knights, whose goal is conquering the multiverse. Eventually, he gets exposed to a large dose of positive energy, which allows Barry Allen to regain control, helping in the fight against the Dark Knights. But the positive energy also kills him, and Red Death explodes into light. Fun. And at 8, Daniel West. First appearing in The Flash Volume 4, number 0 in 2012, Daniel West's mother died while giving birth to him, something that his father never forgave him for. Iris West, as his sister, protected and supported Daniel until he ended up pushing their father down the stairs and crippled him for life. After that incident, due to fear of being shunned by Iris, Daniel fled and became a small-time thug by age 18. When trying to make it to the big times, he was stopped by the Flash and was sent to prison for 5 years. Eventually he got out but was kidnapped by gorillas and then saved from those gorillas by the Rogues. Cyclops, who then he tried to escape, but got hit with a monorail powered by a Speed Force battery. This is what gave Daniel his speed, although it was dependent on the charge of that battery. So in an effort to go back in time and kill his father to save his relationship with Iris, which is kinda backwards buddy, but you know, you do you, he started killing speedsters to gain enough speed to make the journey. In the end, he was stopped by the Flash, who convinced him to give up his speed. Daniel West is one of the rogues that Future Flash ended up killing in his mission to gain enough speed to, in essence, do the same thing that Daniel wanted to do, except Future Flash was killing himself, not his father. But Daniel officially died in New Suicide Squad Annual #1 in 2015.
Coming to you live from Warp World, one of the most out there versions of Peter Parker hit the page in Infinity Wars issue 3. Moon Knight and Spider-Man are gearing up. They're making a game plan to take down Gamora. And Spider-Man says, look, just punch whoever I punch in a second. Deal? Easy peasy. That turns out to be a lot harder than imagined when the both of them merge together. Alongside Arachnite, we got to meet some other amalgams of characters. We got Ghost Panther, Soldier Supreme, Iron Hammer, and more, so much more. Peter's mind was also separated into 4 different personalities, each desiring dominance. So we have Science Pete, the Knight Pete, Friendly Neighborhood Arachnid Pete, and for when it comes to signing checks and shaking hands, we have CEO Pete. Number 6, Astro Spider. Jumping on over to Earth 3145, making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 2, John Jameson III was an astronaut for NASA, and during one mission, a spider got trapped in his suit, which it's an absolute nightmare scenario right there. But when the space shuttle was hit by cosmic waves, John then obtained these amazing new abilities. He didn't come home and stop bank robbers one quip and whip at a time. See, this Earth was now destroyed by a thermonuclear war, so Jameson was assigned to oversee the construction of a spacecraft on the Nautilus platform. He, along with 35 others, are the last of humanity. After this cosmic mishap, John can now read minds. He can create webs of solid telekinetic energy, but he met his fate a few issues later when he was feasted on by Verna. Sometimes being a spider totem sucks. Number 5, the Savage Spider-Man. Spider-Man, but a savage, so savage. This Peter Parker entered comics in Vault of Spiders issue 1. When a plane went down over Antarctica, Peter was the only survivor out of his family. He didn't have powers yet, he didn't swing his way to freedom, but he survived by using the last parachute. During his rough emergency landing, the wind moved him around quite a bit, and unfortunately he landed in one of the worst places on the planet, a spider's nest in Savage Land. I was just done with the spider stuff, now we're back to being itchy again. They all just bit him over and over and over again, and powers of course soon followed. The Savage Spider-Man was the new protector of Savage Land. Later on, he was recruited into the Spider Army by Ghost Spider to fight off the Inheritors back on our Earth 616. Honestly, this is a great version. I love when Wilson Fisk sees the boy growing up again. See, he was the reason the plane went down in the first place those many years ago. So when he returns to see if this Savage Spider-Man is real, he gets a little payback. Number 4, Hostess Cake Spider-Man. I think it's time we talk about one of the weirdest but yummiest versions of Spider-Man. Not only is Peter dishing out quips and flips, but he's also feeding the world too. What a hero. This version was born in an ad for Hostess Twinkies, so naturally its own Marvel universe has to exist. And also, it's fun to make it exist and to think about it. When it came down to taking on villains, Spider-Man wouldn't web them up, instead he would just huck treats at them, because that always works. Twinkies, Hostess cakes, anything, you name it. Funny enough, in Spider-Verse issue 1, the cakes are referred to as Golden Sponge Cakes so that they don't get sued. It's also the same issue where we see the end of Golden Sponge Cake Spidey. It's sad, but if he stuck around for too long, realistically, everybody would just get fat or riddled with cavities.
Spider sense tells me this cake isn't for eating. It's for throwing!
Number 3, Superior Spider. Starting in 2013, this version is the outcome of the Dying Wish storyline when Dr. Octavius planted his mind inside Peter Parker's. Nice little swap. There we go. We see this begin in Amazing Spider-Man issue 698. Peter gets a priority call from the Avengers, and when he meets them all on the raft, Cap informs him that one of his old enemies is dying, and Peter knows that it's Doc Ock before he even tells him. Cap says that he's asking for him. Well, rather, he's asking for Peter Parker. Peter goes in and he asks everybody for a private moment, just the two of them to talk it out, right? But when they're in there for that hot second, it's revealed that they somehow have switched bodies, page 20 and 22. So Peter in Doc's body is freaking out. He's worried what the hell to do, because now he's got his powers and his families and his friends are all at risk. You gotta stay away from those brain-swapping Octobots, that's the key. I'm not going to tell you what happens because it's really enjoyable. Go check it out yourself. Number 2, Spider-Boy. Marvel and DC are powerhouses, both on page and on screen. So when the two companies combine forces, we get some pretty amazing characters like Spider-Boy. Making his first debut in Marvel vs. DC issue 3, residing on Earth 9602, Spider-Boy is an amalgam of Spider-Man and Superboy. How epic is that? Spider-Boy is a clone. Now he's a clone of Peter who was created during an accidental lab explosion. General Ross felt responsible for this explosion, so he ended up adopting the young lab lad. They were a fun duo until Ross was taken out by a mugger, so Pete then became a hero. He put together the suit, became famous almost overnight. That whole event kicked off the with great power comes great responsibility vibe. Now back when he returned to Project Cadmus, Pete was given a web pistol to help him swing around town. In this story, he doesn't have webs here, but it doesn't really matter. Because of his new superpowers, he can focus gravity inwards to make himself stronger and move faster, or he can lower gravity around himself in order to jump higher, further, and faster. He just clicks the off switch on gravity and then climbs walls. Must be nice. Guy probably kills it with wall sits. And finally, number 1, Flash, Betty, and John. For the last one on this list, we figured we'd end on a 3-in-1. What If is releasing weekly episodes on Disney Plus currently, so I have to throw it back to one of my favorite issues from Volume 1 back in the 70s. What if someone else besides Spider-Man had been bitten by the radioactive spider? Written by Don Glutt, What If Volume 1 Issue 7, we get to see Flash Thompson, Betty Brant, and John Jameson get their shot at being Spider-Man. How lucky. First, Flash gets bit, he gets the powers, and he teaches a bad driver a lesson. With his new strength, I mean, he's a little bit too harsh. The middle finger always works, but okay, rocky start, that's fine. Then he decides to take a crack at professional wrestling. He thinks it's gonna be a breeze, but due to said super strength, he killed the guy instead of tapping him out. Not much of a superhero there. The Vulture ends up ending his not so hot streak, so next up we have Betty Brant. Her costume is arguably the flashiest. It makes for great photo shoots, apparently. Gotta get those likes somehow, make those superpowered TikToks. I'm here for it. But when she runs out of web fluid while striking a pose, the thief that takes Uncle Ben's life runs on by, and no one does anything about it. And finally, this issue shows us John Jameson getting his shot. While his outfit was also pretty on point, his judgment was not. John tried to stop a space shuttle from crashing and didn't live to tell the tale. Next time you feel like web swinging to work, just remember that the responsibility thing is just as important as the powers.
And at 10, Black Flash. The embodiment of death for all speedsters, Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2, number 138 in 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, however was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Molly's girlfriend, which I have to admit is a pretty big bummer. Since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash then returned to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters including Jesse Quick, Jay Garrick, and Max Mercury, Wally was able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to have no meaning, defeating the zombie speedster instantly. I mean, I know he's not a zombie, but he looks like one. But that wouldn't stop the Speed Force, since later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took the title after his corpse was raised in the Darkest Night storyline. Before we move on to number 9 though, if you could do me a huge favor and hit those like and subscribe buttons, that would be amazing. It really helps us out against the eternal struggle of the algorithm and lets us know what you want to see more of. Thanks. Now, let's continue. And at 9, the Black Racer. However, Black Flash was not the first embodiment of death that speedsters had to deal with. Being introduced in New Gods number 3 in 1971, Sergeant William Walker became a servant to Darkseid after being paralyzed during the Vietnam War. But while sharing the same concept, the thing that makes these two speedster death gods different is their abilities. While yes, both are speedsters, the Black Racer possesses the unique power to merge with a host, corrupting that person and enhancing their abilities. He did this with Bart Allen and used that to kill Darkseid during the Darkseid War storyline when the Anti-Monitor had taken control of the Black Racer. Black Racer also kills Darkseid in Final Crisis in place of Barry Allen and Wally West. This was pre-Flashpoint though. Plus, his costume just looks pretty badass if you ask me. This is the kind of evil speedster that you should cosplay. Damn, that would be cool. And it ain't Johnny Quick. Johnny Quick of Earth 3 is an evil version of the Flash who's a member of the Crime Syndicate, basically the Justice League, but evil. Same people, but different alignment. Jonathan Allen was once a high-profile criminal, but got cornered on the roof of Star Labs. While on the roof, Jonathan got struck by lightning, which also shattered the roof. John and his girlfriend fell through that roof, with John landing in a load of chemicals which ended up granting him his super speed. And his girlfriend, Rhonda, ended up gaining powers similar to that of the Atom. Looking at images of this guy, you can tell that he's nuts. Like, he looks like if the Green Goblin became a speedster. Like if Norman got the Carnage symbiote and then got super speed, this is what that would look like. Absolutely bonkers. However, when fighting against the Injustice League of Earth Prime, Johnny underestimated Captain Cold. See, he had managed to disarm Cold, but the gun was also voice activated, which allowed Snart to remotely freeze Johnny's leg and then kick it, shattering it. Johnny tried to crawl away, but was killed thanks to Alexander Luthor stealing his powers and then getting his neck snapped. That's gonna leave a mark. In its 7, Earth X. Earth X, or Earth 10, Flash was born and raised in a world where Germany won World War II. And since this is a sensitive subject for YouTube, I'm going to avoid using specific terms, so my apologies in advance. While his real name is unknown, Der Blitz, as he's known in German, is the member of the, oh god, I'm going to butcher this, Gretchkidtilga. Oh wait, hold on, that's wrong, I need to yell it. Gretchkidtilga! God, I hate myself for that. Which is basically an evil regime version of the Justice League, also referred to as the JL Axis. The current members are Brunhild, the Earth 10 Wonder Woman, Leatherwing, Earth 10 Batman, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Flash, Green Lantern, and Overman, the Superman of Earth 10. This version of the Flash also appears in the Freedom Fighters The Ray animated series that takes place in the Arrowverse, but was interestingly missing from the Crisis on Earth X crossover that featured characters from this show. Instead, this Flash was just Eobard Thawne from Earth 1 wearing Harrison Wells' face, which leads some to believe that Thawne killed the Earth X version of Flash in order to prove himself to the regime. And at 6, Savitar. The Savitar from the comics is certainly another interesting character, first appearing in Flash Volume 2 number 108 in 1995. The man whose name is still unknown that became Savitar was a Cold War test pilot. As he reached top speed in a test flight for a supersonic fighter plane, the plane was struck by lightning and went down in hostile territory. Once he learned about his speed though, he became obsessed and craved more, like any villain does. He named himself after the Hindu god of motion and spent years studying, learning new powers that no other speedster had mastered. He can protect himself in what is in essence a speed force field, give speed to objects and even other people, and heal injuries instantaneously instead of just way faster. As Savitar's obsession grew, so did his followers, and he became the leader of basically his own self-worshipping cult. That's the dream. And as he desired more, he went after the only speedster around at the time, Johnny Quick. The fight ended up causing Max Mercury to show up, who led him to the speed field where Savitar bounced off. He did at some point return, and instead wanted to eliminate his competition, including the Flash, Impulse, and especially Max. But he ended up dying in the Flash Volume 2 number 111 in 1996. Halfway through in at number 5, Capitalist Couriers. First appearing in the Flash Volume 2 number 6 in 1987, the group, originally known as the Red Trinity, was created by Russian scientist Pyotr Orlov, I totally butchered that, when he and his partner attempted to recreate Flash's super speed abilities after watching a daring rescue. The second group of test subjects was successful and were named the Red Trinity. The group included Anatoly, Bebek, and Cassiopeia, and they became agents for the Soviet military. But here is where it gets weird. When the third Flash came to enlist the help of Dr. Orlov in the issue of saving Jerry McGee's life, the Red Trinity chose to follow Orlov to America. While there, they became infatuated with American culture and chose to stay in the US, opening a business as a team of super speed messengers called Capitalist Courier Service Inc. Cassiopeia has since died because he was running up the side of a building trying to make a delivery when his speed vanished and he fell to his death. This was thanks to Savitar's reappearance. These Russian speedsters literally made Amazon Super Prime. That's hilarious and I love it. That's probably what I would do with my powers, honestly, now that I've gotten the idea from this. Thank you. And at 4, Silent Running. When your world is described as a paradise, there isn't much that you can think to screw it up. That's because you didn't consider volcanic eruptions blotting out the sun, sending that once paradise into an ice age. When this happened, surviving members of the Holy Light religion went on a pilgrimage to find salvation for their people. The leader of the Holy Light, Stephen Mallory, left his sons behind while he went on his journey. Brian and Tristan were left alone, with Tristan taking his father's place as leader while he was gone, even though Brian was the eldest. However, upon their father's return, Tristan killed him. Then the brothers went out into the world in search of lightning, one of the foundations of their religion. They eventually got struck by lightning, which had an interesting effect. Tristan, the one who killed their father, was aged, while Brian was given super speed and the power to create what they call green life. So Tristan kinda freaked out, locking Brian in the heart of a machine that pushes back the ice to create a livable city, because Tristan believed this was necessary to save everyone, but considered himself a living god of sorts. He demanded people obey his will and use their life force to keep himself young for centuries, all the while trying to be blessed by lightning, which I'm guessing means getting struck by lightning over and over again. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Wizard. This version of the Flash actually comes from the Marvel Universe, believe it or not. And while yes, the Speedsters are a superhero archetype now, this one is a deliberate reference to the Flash from an unofficial Justice League vs. Avengers crossover fight in the Marvel Universe. The Wizard is a member of the Squadron Supreme, which comes from a parallel dimension of the Marvel Universe. Stanley Stewart is his name, and while running late one night, he ran through a strange fog. Over the next few weeks, he gained the ability to run faster than anyone else. The original goal of the Squadron, which Wizard was a founding member of, was to create a utopia, which they would have accomplished. They turned much of the world into a paradise within the first year, but stopped when a former member, known as Nighthawk, convinced them that it was in essence a dictatorship. Shortly after the project ended, multiple members of the team got stranded in the Marvel Universe, but did end up making it home. Penultimately, in at number 2, No Rules to Follow. In an Elseworld story where metahumans are hated, much like mutants in the Marvel Universe, 10 individuals with superpowers banded together to try and get the world to trust them by doing good deeds. These people, who on other Earths would be known as the Flash, Shark, Fire, Dr. Light, Polaris, Power Girl, Poison Ivy, Tasmanian Devil, Changeling, and Metamorpho. But unfortunately, they didn't accomplish their goal, since their attempts to contain a nuclear meltdown made everything worse. After this disaster, metahumans went into hiding, and a few metas, Flash included, begin raiding military bases that had previously attacked them. But after a battle with the Control Squad, which was a group of high-tech operatives with the Wayne Foundation, created to fight the metahuman menace, caused an even further split, resulting in Ivy, Changeling, and Metamorpho all hating the military even more. But when Superman showed himself after some convincing, Wayne funded a new group, made of the original 10 metas minus those who wanted revenge, and replaced those 3 with Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Superman. This new group, which was dedicated to upholding tolerance and justice for humans and metahumans alike, became known as the Justice League. But this version of the Flash also looks like really weird. It looks like if Juggernaut was cosplaying the Flash. Straight up. Finally, in at number 1, the terrific Whatsit. Last time I talked about the Crash, a turtle from Earth C- that has super speed, but now I bring you an even more ridiculous version, the terrific Whatsit. Merton McSnurl first appeared in Funny Stuff number 1 in 1944 and was a World War II era hero on Earth C-. He has super speed, super strength, and can fly. And the reason he's called Whatsit is because in an effort to conceal his identity, wait for it, he takes off his shell when he puts on his costume, so nobody knows that he's a turtle. That's even funnier than the whole glasses thing for Superman. This version of the Flash even dresses like Jay Garrick with the helmet and everything. I'm not kidding. It's absolutely incredible. I love it so much. His name is McSnurtle. He's McSnurtle the turtle. Hell yeah, baby!
Coming in number 10, we've got Thor-El. On the surface, this is a pretty cool looking superhero. Nothing too outrageous to see here. No funky animal parts, no silly gag weapons, no ridiculous shoehorning into a larger plot that may or may not make sense. Well, that last one is contestable, but we'll ignore it for now. The thing about Thor-El is that he's a fusion of 2 famous heroes, one of which is Thor. Can you guess who number 2 is in this combination? Well, if you thought we were strictly sticking to Marvel today, you'd be wrong. Thor-El is the result of Marvel and DC's crossover comics known as Amalgam Comics. Crossovers are done all the time. They're part of the wicked fun that is comic books. But to have these 2 Goliath comic creators cross over, well, that was something wild. Superman, or Kal-El, plus Thor. What a duo! In this enormous universe-connecting event, many new heroes were born. Thor-El wasn't the only crossover character created, but this is definitely new ground for both these supers involved. He's very blue this time around, thanks to the Superman here being Blue Energy Superman, and has a big-ass T on his chest thanks to Thor. A very powerful creature indeed. Not a very long-lived one though, as he only shows up a few times across a couple issues. Coming in at number 9, we've got Iron Hammer. Sticking with the theme of crossovers, let's take a look at one that can be associated with the most ambitious crossover event of all time. The Avengers might seem a little basic at this point, what with them being the focal point of a multi-billion-dollar film franchise that now largely controls the feature film industry, but they used to be something people got really excited for. You could hint at it unendingly and build up the hype as much as you wanted because people really wanted to see Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and the Hulk team up. Eventually they got Spider-Man in there too, phenomenal. A blast and a half, absolutely. But what happens when you quite literally cross some famous characters over? Well, you get Iron Hammer, which very cool name by the way. He comes from the world of Infinity Warps, where Gamora messes up the universe, causing all sorts of heroes and villains to mishmash together. This results in a whole new squad of crazy characters, including Stark Odinson, the lovely son of Iron Man and Thor. If you thought these two were strong on their own, just check this out. When Iron Hammer was first conceived, he sort of just lived his life as a human with no memory of anything else. Eventually he did realize his skill with technology, and even further down the line discovered his Asgardian ancestry. The result? Iron Man with Asgardian enhanced technology. Magic and machine, together at last. Coming in at number 8, we've got Zombie Thor. Marvel zombies, what a wild ride for all involved. One would assume that a literal god might be able to resist the zombie virus and fight back, but here we are. I guess it's more of a super zombie virus after all. After a valiant fight to keep hope alive, Thor could fight no longer. The Deadite Legion were too much for him in both numbers and power, and so Thor succumbed to the virus. From there he rose up, looking for a nice snack to eat, and began his life as a zombie. Frankly, Zombie Thor doesn't look all that different from regular Thor, save for a much spookier face and a nice set of chompers that we tend to focus on a little more than usual. Oh, and Mjolnir is no longer his weapon. As a zombie, he stops being worthy, which leaves him kinda feeling naked. Instead of remaining as a hammerless zombie, Thor decides to find a new one. And so he does, in the form of a bunch of scraps cobbled together from the rubble. Improvised weapons and zombies, a tale as old as time.
And in 7, Kingdom Come Flash. Wally West from Earth 22 is weird to me since it feels so backwards, everything does. In the Kingdom Come universe of Earth 22, Wally West received his speed through unknown means, but nonetheless he still became the Flash. And when Superman retired, Wally kept going, but he kept going and never stopped. Running from scene to scene, disaster to disaster, never taking a break. Before this, however, he ended up having a daughter, who got her speed genetically and became Kid Flash. However, this is where it gets weird to me. His children were named Iris West and Barry West, and it sets me on edge because like they're supposed to be older than him, and then Wally is supposed to inherit the Flash mantle. It's weird. Not to mention that this time Barry and Iris are actual biological siblings, which only makes all the memes about the Arrowverse even worse at this point. But considering Wanda and Pietro from the Ultimate Universe, it's nothing new for comics. Gotta love them Game of Thrones-esque love stories, am I right? Okay, well in this universe the kids don't actually end up dating, but you know what I mean. And at 6, Savitar. Yes. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I felt the need to include one of the most interesting evil speedsters on the show. Savitar, while sharing the name with another evil speedster from the comics, actually is revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen in the show, being more of a future Flash than Savitar. Honestly, he's a combination of both. His story though is very confusing, in essence making himself a paradox. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible, which is basically a clone of himself, in order to stop him. But Savitar kills all of them except one. The one he spares then gets shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he's still technically the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the time remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed known as Savitar, and then somehow gets his face badly burned. I feel like I need to return him to Papa John's. When he fails at killing Iris, however, he tries to scatter himself across time to become immortal, but is stopped by Team Flash and is shot in the back by Iris, which lets the paradox catch up. Season 3 was weird, man. It's nothing compared to Season 7, though. Halfway through into number 5, Bizarro Flash. When Bizarro 3 found himself infused with radiation from a blue sun, he got the power to replicate himself as well as create other Bizarro life forms based upon the likeness of people from Earth, which is gonna have a ton of legal repercussions, but whatever. He uses this power to create a cube-shaped Minecraft-like Earth he calls Bizarro World. One of the inhabitants he creates for it is Bizarro Flash. The post-crisis Bizarro Flash is morbidly obese and is super slow, which is just ridiculous. But for some reason he can also fly at the speed of light apparently, which also doesn't make any sense, but hey, it's comic books, what are you gonna do? Some versions of this Bizarro can still run fast but get winded easily, so they don't pose much of a threat. Certainly not against the likes of someone like Kingdom Come Flash, who never stops running. This version of Bizarro Flash also has a line of mustard for a logo instead of a lightning bolt, although I do have an odd craving for hot dogs now. And at 4, Leah Nelson. Leah Nelson from Earth 9 is a very different version of the Flash to say the least. On her Earth, Leah is the second most recognized person on the planet. She was an instant celebrity since her parents were the first people to visit Jupiter, her mother was a bit of a hero herself, and her father was a Nightwing agent, even if you wasn't very good at it. But Leah is a being of light, and once able to control this power, she took on the moniker of the Flash. Since she is a being of light, Leah is also able to travel at the speed of light, basically making her a speedster without having a connection to the Speed Force, which I admit may frustrate some of you with her being on this list, but I thought it was interesting and is certainly a weird version of the Flash. Leah also has a whole host of powers, including superhuman speed, metamorphosis, where she uses light to create solid holograms and alter her appearance, energy construct creation, allowing her to make solid objects out of light, energy projection, which is just beams of energy, and energy absorption, which in essence makes her immune to any form of light, including lasers. Just think of energy as lightning and then boom, even more flashlight. Getting close to the end into number 3, Hot Pursuit. What is the Flash known for? Running really fast, right? Running so fast that he can actually end up beating instantaneous teleportation. So what's the deal with this Flash? Being first introduced in The Flash Volume 3 number 6, Hot Pursuit is a version of Barry Allen from another universe who came to warn his counterpart about an impending disaster, which ends up being Flashpoint. The difference? This Flash doesn't run. Instead, he has a Speed Force powered motorcycle called the Cosmic Motorcycle. Yeah, his cowl is a motorcycle helmet and his suit is in black and white. This version of Barry Allen doesn't seem to have a physical connection to the Speed Force, only being able to access it through his motorcycle. Unfortunately though, Hot Pursuit dies 6 issues later in The Flash Volume 3 number 12 as a part of the Road to Flashpoint event. The moniker of Hot Pursuit would later be adopted by Patty Spivot after she stole his gear from the Central City Police Department. Penultimately into number 2, Speed Demon. I remember a while ago I mentioned an amalgam universe that combined DC and Marvel characters, and I mentioned the Iron Lantern, a combination of Hal Jordan and Tony Stark. Well, today I present you Speed Demon, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Blaze Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon. The demon component of Etrigan was formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve him in his attempts to collect souls of the most pure and the most corrupt. Blaze Allen refused. So in an attempt to persuade him, at his wedding, Night Spectre stole Iris's soul. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back, or at least to ensure her safety. Speed Demon speaks only in rhymes, but is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire, which is pretty dope. Wally West, which is an amalgam of Wally West and Danny Ketch, was the next Speed Demon, who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back, because he still didn't get her back after he accepted the power. Finally, coming in at number 1, the Crash. Oh my god. Coming from Earth C-, this Crash is the fastest animal alive, and a member of the Just a Lot of Animals group, which is this world's Justice League. On Earth C, everyone is some form of animal, and it's probably the most ridiculous thing that you could ever read. While his real name is unknown, the Crash is this universe's Flash. And not only that, but he's actually a turtle. The classic tortoise in the hare scenario. Slow and steady wins the race to get super speed and a connection to the Speed Force apparently. And I'm not even kidding, he fights against characters with names like the Weather Weasel instead of the Weather Wizard. That's hilarious. I love it so much. The Crash was first introduced in Captain Carrot and His Amazing Zoo Crew number 14, which also features superheroes like Wonder Wabbit, that's actually how it's said, Aquaduck, Batmouse, and apparently not a Batman, who is literally a bat for some reason, the Green Lambkin, and not the Green Lantern, and my personal favorite, the Green Sparrow, along with a load of other ridiculous names like The Item. I suggest you go check these out if you're looking for a laugh, because oh my god, this had me cackling. It's great.